Hey guys, Jerry from Showtime Audio. Just wanted to show you our newest project in from Indiana. So we actually have this beautiful 2024 Chevy Silverado 2500 HD High Country. So basically, highest level trim you got. We're doing a full Escort radar laser defense system. So we're gonna show you how we installed all the components. So this particular system has 3 laser heads up front. There's 2 RXs and the TX. So this is a new feature for the Escort systems. They never had TXs before, but now they do. So now they're able to jam more of the gun effectively. That was one of the limiting factors before on the Escort systems that we weren't the biggest fan on, that they didn't have a TX sensor, which gives you additional coverage. The way we mounted them is obviously we try to shoot for center mass, right? Because that's where the officer is going to be targeting. So typically they target center mass of the vehicle, license plate, or headlight. So if you think about every sensor, there's a circle around it, right? It's roughly like a 24-inch circle. And so this sensor covers this area, this sensor covers this area, and therefore you're protected on the large front end of this vehicle. For the radar antenna, we machined this bracket, and the bracket actually bolts in the back, and it's mounted here in the front. And what you do is you slide in the radar receiver, and there's 2 Allen bolts. But if the car ever does need to get serviced, you remove these 2 Allen bolts, the whole assembly will slide out. The bracket, there's a single screw in the back, and then you unmount it and you can remove the entire bracket. So again, basically we're not trying to make any additional holes in the vehicle that are not absolutely necessary. Our main goal is always to be able to return the car back to stock in case the client ever decides to trade in the vehicle and wants to remove the system. All right, so on the rear of the Silverado, we have 2 laser heads. So there's RX and a TX on the back as well. So again, another nice thing because it gives you additional coverage and just more protection against more of the current guns that are available. So as far as the rear radar receiver, what we did is we machined this bracket and it's mounted, and now the radar receiver is mounted under the hitch, so it's kind of hidden. But the problem is this truck has all metal bumpers, right? So these radar receivers will not work behind a metal bumper. So if you ever have a system and it has a metal bumper and they put the radar receiver behind it, just know that that thing is not working or barely working, if anything at all. So in this case, what we do is we mount it down here. And again, still serviceable. So if you remove these 2 Allen bolts, you can remove the whole rear radar antenna. And then obviously to put it back in, it's just pop it back into the bracket, put the 2 bolts back on, you're back in business, right? All right, so one of the things that we do on all our systems is we're real particular about the angle of the laser head. So ideally, they tell you you can be within 3 to 5 degrees, but we like to try to be between 0 and 1 ideally, right? So what we do is we machine these acrylic shims. So this is actually starts out as a much thicker piece of acrylic, and we put angles in them. So this is 11 degrees and this is 10 degrees. And you know, you would think, oh, well, what the hell can 1 degree of difference make? I mean, how bad can it be? So I wanted to just quick show you on this vehicle, because I thought typically we have 10 degrees or 11 degrees. So I want to show you how much of a change 1 degree of difference makes. And this is 10 degrees. So imagine without the shim, if you just mounted the sensor to this bumper, which seems flat, because 10 degrees isn't very much. But again, when you're talking about the laser head being 1,000 yards out, 10 degrees here is a couple, I don't know, 40, 50 feet at 1,000 yards, probably a lot more than that. So the best possible scenario is to get it as flat as possible so you're protected as far out as possible instead of it being pitched up at the sky. So if you can see the bubble, obviously the goal is for it to be between, I'm using the bubble because it's easier to show. Typically we use a digital angle finder, but just so that you can see this easily on camera, you can see that the bubble is completely out of level. So that's level, right? So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna take the 11 degree shim. So this is 11 degrees. And you can see that that's closer, but it's still out of level, right? Now I'm gonna take the 10 degree shim, and you see that that's basically level right there, right? So that's, again, that's only 1 degree of difference. And look at how far out of level 1 single degree matters, right? So a lot of times that, you know, we're obviously very particular about this, but it's because it actually has an effect on the system. Now, as the consumer, are you gonna know the difference? Probably not. But if I'm buying a high-end radar laser defense system, I wanna know that it's working to its highest potential, right? So by ensuring these little things about the sensors being that close to level, you're getting the best possible performance out of that system. Will it work with the 10 degrees of pitch? Or I've seen much worse where it's pitched way up or pitched up and out, which is actually completely wrong. Yes, but if I want the best protection, you're buying one of the top of the line systems, you want it installed at the same level or caliber of the system itself. In this particular case, the client opted to have both the controller and the display here. Where we typically put it in a cluster or any of our custom modifications, we can embed this or mold this into anything, but the client wanted it standard. So he wanted it where he can reach it easily, where he can see it. And you can go to our YouTube channel and search for Radar Laser Defense, and you'll see tons of videos on where we do mirror modifications, clusters, mold the buttons into the console, things like that. So we're gonna turn the truck on. So obviously the system comes online. So laser shifter receivers, it does a check of the system. Boom, there we go, we're up and running. And then on this particular system, we flush mounted, there's an LED here. So we have the LED which fires at the cluster. So the nice thing about that is when you have an attack, it will light up the cluster, which tells you obviously to look at the display, but it's just a secondary measure. It's not necessary, but it's a nice little feature that makes you look at the display. All right, so one of the other components of the radar laser defense system is a GPS antenna. So what that antenna allows is for the system to know how fast you're going, and it also allows you to know of red light cameras and marked locations, and it also uses it to learn false triggers, right? So what we did is, rather than install it on top where you can see it, we'll show pictures of this because it's tough to see, but we fabricated a bracket which drops it down into a little spot that exists here in the dash. So now the antenna is flush in the dash, and on a lot of your newer vehicles, the factory GPS antenna or satellite radio or some of the telematics antennas actually typically live here under this panel because it's high in the dash and not on the exterior. Other antennas are on the roof itself, but we just don't like for you to see the antenna. So we go this little extra step in order to make it look as factory as possible. So one of the questions we get asked a lot on our social media is if we do cars in other states. So unfortunately, we don't have any other locations other than our main headquarters here in Chicago. But what we do have quite a bit is we have the ability to transport vehicles. If you're interested in having your vehicle shipped to us to get one of our radar laser defense systems, one of our audio upgrades, basically any modification that you can't seem to find anywhere else, please give us a text at 773-489-7469, and we can arrange the car to be picked up and dropped off. We make it really easy. We have a transport company that comes out, they'll pick up the vehicle, we do all the installation, and the transport vehicle will deliver the car back to you.